Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and where we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And in today's episode, the topic is, should the Clippers do whatever it takes to get Kyle Lowry from the Raptors? So that's the topic I'm going to get into in today's video. But before we get into that, I want you guys to please make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Also, check out our Dreamerspro premium community, Dreamerspro Max. It's a place where you can go and start basketball discussions, sports discussions in general, chat live during games, consume original content that you're not going to be able to get anywhere else, and do so many other cool things. So if you guys want to check that out, be sure to check that out. We have it linked in the description below, and get 7 days of free access. I'm sure you guys are going to enjoy it. So let me get into this video here. Okay. It's a pretty interesting time right now. For Clippers fans, a pretty interesting time, and for me, it's an interesting time for Kawhi Leonard fans. So we recently did a video asking the question if it was time for the Clippers to hit the panic button or not, and the overwhelming majority said yes, it's time for them to hit the panic button, and for good reason. I can understand why a lot of you guys, said that. Apart from the fact that the Clippers are not getting the benefit of the doubt, they do have some major issues they needed to address. Number one, or major issues that's plaguing them currently. Number one is their lack of healthy players. I said this in that video, talking about, and I've been saying it for the past few videos, that health has been an issue for this team. Their key players, talking about Patrick Beverley, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Serge Ibaka, even, what's his name, Nicholas Batum, and Lou Williams. All of these guys, if you compile all the games that they've missed, collectively as a team, they've missed about 40 plus games combined. Guys, that's a lot of games to miss. Now, somehow this team, just like last season, they were plagued with injuries, but somehow, some way they managed to stay afloat. I think last season they finished number 3 or number 2 or number 3 in the Western Conference with all the injuries that they had last season. And this season, I think they're number 4 right now, number 5. If I check the Western Conference standings, let me check to see if they moved. Yes, the Clippers are still the number 4 seed in the Western Conference with a 2-game lead over the Denver Nuggets as far as in the win column, but they're tied in the loss column. But they're 4-6 overall, out of their last 10 games. So health has been one issue. Another issue that the Clippers have had is that their defense has been underwhelming. Now, listen. Early in the season, you guys remember when I was talking about the Clippers, even given the fact that they were doing well, I mentioned the fact that I thought they could get better defensively. And the thing I didn't like the most about the Clippers defense was that I thought overall they were giving up way too many points per game. I know in today's game, in day and age, there's so many metrics that you can use to kind of measure the game and get a sense of what's happening on an individual and holistic level. If you're looking at team stats, individual stats, defensive win, they have so many different metrics that you can look at. But for me, the most important number to me is how many points are you holding your opponents to? To me, all of those things, if they don't translate to that, then I don't really think you have a good defensive team. And to me, I think the Clippers were giving up way too many points. I think they're giving up somewhere around 108 points per game now, 108, 109. That's way too many points per game to give up. You got to try to hold your opponents closer to that 100-point mark. Now, in today's NBA, it's a very hard thing to do. It's not easy to do. They held the Dallas Mavericks. Last game they played them, they held them to 105 points. The problem was they couldn't generate enough offense. Excuse me, in that game, they couldn't generate enough offense. They just weren't hitting their shots. That's another reason they lost, is that they just couldn't hit their shots. And sometimes it happens, especially when you're a jump shooting team. As the number 1 3-point shooting team in the league, when you don't make your shots, that's what happens. You end up losing games. Even if you play great defense, if you don't make your shots, it doesn't really count. Because as they say, as the cliche goes, it's a make or miss. It's a make or miss league. Now, another thing about their defense that has been perplexing, apart from the fact that they haven't been good or been a mediocre defensive team at best, is that when you look at the players that they have on their team, like the individual players, you're talking about all defensive players. Right, all NBA defensive team type players, and Patrick Beverley, Lou Williams, and all these. Not Lou Williams, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. But collectively, as a unit, they don't play great defense. Right, and also, if you mention now Serge Ibaka, who led the league in block 3 times. But collectively, they play very poor defense. And a question has been posed, and the question was by some people saying, listen, it's if these players had such great individual defenders, why couldn't they stop Luka Doncic? Why couldn't they stop, you know, so-and-so player, right? Well, that's an interesting question, and the question is this. Damian Lillard, as potent as he is as an offensive player in the NBA, if Damian Lillard is going to go for a night where he has 40 to 50 points, where he goes off of 50, I want you to tell me the person in the NBA who you think can stop Damian Lillard when he's hot from getting 50, or Stephen Curry, or Kevin Durant, or Kyrie Irving. The fact of the matter is this. Great offense always beats great defense, number one. Number two, there's certain players in this NBA, when they get going offensively, like you saw with Luka Doncic, there's no defense you can play on them, right? Now, Luka Doncic is not scoring 40 points every single night. That doesn't happen. Like Damian Lillard is not scoring 50 points every single night. When you see guys going off, guys get hot, and then you just can't stop them. If it was that simple, if it were just like, okay, stop this guy, then when Kawhi was going on his run to the NBA Finals, why didn't all those teams stop him? You can ask the question, well, I thought Ben Simmons is good. No one that's worth their salt will tell you that will say, oh, Ben Simmons is not a great defensive player. If you say something like that, it means that you really, again, you don't really pay attention to basketball. Ben Simmons is a fantastic player, but Ben Simmons couldn't see Kawhi. Now, does it mean that Ben Simmons is a bad defensive player? No, it just means that Kawhi was hot for the playoffs. So yes, sometimes they can do a better job on some of these guys, I agree, but to just say, well, just stop him, again, that's kind of a simplistic way to look at things, because you can just say, well, just stop Damian Lillard. You just can't stop these guys. These guys are good for a reason. Like, oh, just stop him. If you're such a great defender, stop him. They've said the same thing about Kobe. If you're such a great defender, why didn't you stop? Because there was nobody on earth that could play basketball, that could guard these guys. So sometimes they get hot, and sometimes give people their credit. They have a great shooting night, right? So I think sometimes when people ask that, they're like, well, if you're so great, go stop him. Yeah, sure. Like, because it's that easy, right? No, it's not easy. These guys are very tough to guard. Now, let's talk about the Lakers. Comparing the Lakers and the Clippers, if we're talking about them defensively, the Lakers are light years ahead. The Lakers are a better defensive team. Just go look at their numbers. The Lakers are a better defensive team. So the Clippers and Lakers, although the Lakers don't have all of these great all-world individual defenders, if you look at their roster, if you peel through their roster, but they're very cerebral defensive team. They have great principles, and they have a defensive-minded coach. So the Lakers are a very good team. And the funny thing is, as I said, they don't have Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Patrick Beverley, but they have guys that know how to play defense and are willing to play defense every single night, including LeBron James, who's going to make an all-defensive team for sure. So for me, if you're comparing these two LA teams, for sure the Lakers are head and shoulders above them when we're talking about defensively. Another issue that the Clippers are having is late game execution. We know this. I've said this before. If you guys have been following the channel, you've heard me complain about Kawhi Leonard not being very good in the clutch. You've seen the Clippers have difficulties executing late in games. They stop running their offense. They begin to go ISO ball. They become too dependent on the ISO ball, and things just become pretty bad. At other points in the game, you see them just not being able to generate points because they can't run their offense and run their plays properly. And these are all problems, and a lot of this is the root cause of these issues is them not having a very great point guard, which now brings me to Kyle Lowry. Okay, because Kyle Lowry's name has been floating around there. He's been mentioned as a trading piece, especially towards this trade deadline. He's been mentioned for different scenarios. I've heard talks about him going to the Clippers. I've heard talks about him going to the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm not really sure how that works, given the fact they already have a point forward in Ben Simmons. But let's look at Kyle Lowry's numbers this season. Kyle Lowry is averaging 17.8 points per game, so pretty much 18 points per game, shooting 44% from the field, 38.5% from the three, 87.7% from the free throw line, getting you 5.6 rebounds, which is solid for a 6-foot point guard, getting you 5.6 rebounds. That's very impressive, and getting you 7.5 assists and 1.2 steals. So Kyle Lowry, if you compare his numbers to any Clippers point guard, I don't even think is a question, and he's exactly the type of player that the Clippers need. Forget about what you've heard, right? He's the type of player that they need from the point guard position. Why? Because number one, he provides playmaking. There's no one on the Clippers averaging above 6 assists per game. So for sure, when he gets there, he'll be their best passer. Number one. Number two, he takes the ball handling responsibilities out of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, who the Clippers like to run their offense through, especially in fourth quarters. You see Paul George can be turnover prone, and Kawhi Leonard is not as good a pass. He's a good passer, but he's not as good a passer as Paul George. No one here is going to argue who's the better passer between Kyle Lowry, Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George. We all know it's Kyle Lowry. So his playmaking is at an elite level. I like his leadership. Kyle Lowry is a vocal guy. For sure, he's a leader on the Toronto Raptors. There's no question about that. So he'll bring some leadership and vocal leadership to the locker room. Another thing I love about Kyle Lowry is that he has championship experience. You're not just getting a guy that's very, very good that's not been there before. If they got, like, for example, Alonzo Ball, who's never been to the playoffs, yeah, he's good on paper, but does he have championship experience? Is he a leader? You can't say any of those things about him, but you can say that about Kyle Lowry, given the fact that, number one, he has a lot of experience in the playoffs, and number two, he's won an NBA title with Kawhi Leonard and Serge Ibaka, which means he when he comes into to the team, for him to build chemistry would not be a very difficult thing, because I'm sure Kawhi Leonard and Serge Ibaka are going to be able to embrace him and kind of show him the ropes and ingratiate him with all the other players that they have there. Also, Kyle Lowry plays good defense. He plays good defense, and he's extremely competitive, and he's a gamer. He's a gamer. Kyle Lowry plays through injuries. I think when they won their title 2 years ago, I think he was playing either with a broken hand or something was wrong with his hand, because I remember that he had some type of cast on his hand. So for me, I think he would help the team tremendously. Let's just face it. I think he would help this Clippers team tremendously. Now, the question is, will the Toronto Raptors be willing to buy him out? Really, that's the question we're asking, right? Or can the Clippers put together a package that would entice the Raptors to be willing to do a deal with him? Now, the Clippers can send players like Reggie Jackson, Luke Kennard, and some picks. They can package that together and send them, because I think the Clippers have they have 5 picks, 5 future picks that they can send. I think it's 4 second-round picks, if I'm not mistaken. I have to go check, but I know they do have picks. Can they put together a trading package that can entice the Toronto Raptors to want to go ahead and pull the trigger? Because right now, let's face it, the Toronto Raptors is 6 games below 500. They're the number 11 seed in the Eastern Conference. The Toronto Raptors are not going to go to the playoffs. If they do, it will be by a long shot. And if they do get into the playoffs, they're not going to be beating any of the upper seeds. They're not going to beat Milwaukee. They're not going to beat the Brooklyn Nets, and they're not going to beat the Philadelphia 76ers. So them going to the playoffs will just be a thing to say, okay, we made it to the playoffs, but no one is expecting them to come out of the Eastern Conference, in my opinion. So the question still remains: will they be willing to trade him? Will Masai Ujiri and them be willing to send Kyle Lowry to a championship contender? Because obviously, if you let the guy walk, if you buy him out, or whatever the case may be, you're not just going to send him anywhere. You want to throw him a bone and say, hey, thanks for everything that you've done. Go try to win another title. Are they going to be willing to do that? Because for me, I think the Toronto Raptors probably are going to be going through a rebuild, or if they're not going to be going to a rebuild, they need to go through a retooling, because it's presently constructed. Yes, injuries play a role, but every team has been injured in the NBA. Every team is going through injuries, and the good teams figure out a way. The Toronto Raptors have lost some key pieces. They're not the same. They're not the same championship team they were 2 years ago. I follow the team. I picked them to win that title. The players that they had on that roster is not who they have now. You remove Kawhi Leonard, your team got worse. There's no 2 ways to cut it. There's no 2 ways to slice it. You don't get better by removing Kawhi Leonard from your team, number one. They removed Kawhi. Marc Gasol is no longer there. He's older. He was younger when he was there, 2 years younger. They removed Serge Ibaka. Those are 3 pivotal pieces that they had for their championship run. No one here with a straight face would tell you that the Toronto Raptors would have won that title without these guys. So you removed them. All of a sudden, you got worse. Now, last year, they had a good run in the playoffs, and things didn't go their way, but they had Serge and other players there. Serge and them are gone. I think Marc Gasol was with the team last year, if I'm not mistaken. So, listen, the Toronto Raptors are probably going to try to retool for next year, and if that's the case, I don't think they want Kyle Lowry to be a part of that. Why would Kyle Lowry want to be a part of that? Why wouldn't he want to go to a team that has a better shot at winning a title right now? So probably these are some of the things that are going to be, these are some of the things that are going to be taken into consideration, because let's just face it, the Clippers have a point guard issue. I love Patrick Beverley, but the issue with him is he's always injured. So I love him, but he's never available, right? So if you're not available, then, I mean, what do we have? The net gain is nothing. Right? Patrick Beverley has been injured since the All-Star break. Prior to the All-Star break, he already missed 25% of the season. So us sitting here waiting for him is like, you know, you're just holding on to hope. And then when he comes back, what's to say that he's not going to be injured again? Remember, last year in the Orlando bubble, they went into the bubble and Patrick Beverley was injured in the bubble. I think it wasn't even available for the first round. So listen, the Clippers need to make a move. If they can get Kyle Lowry, they need to do whatever it takes to get him or something. But if you're going to ask me for point guards out there, I think he's the best one to go after. I don't think there's any other point guard you can mention in the free agent market that will be better than him. Name the guy. And again, John Wall is not an option. Stop mentioning John Wall in the comment section. It's annoying. John Wall is being paid $40 million. How in the hell are the Clippers going to acquire John Wall? Why would they get John Wall? John Wall is not an option. I've heard some people mention Russell Westbrook. Again, I think that's a terrible idea. They don't need Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook gets you a lot of assists, but is he really a great playmaker? Can we accuse Russell Westbrook of being a great playmaker? Russell Westbrook, again, is too emotionally driven. I've seen him take himself out of playoff series because of his emotions. We don't need, Russell Westbrook is not what you need. If that's what you feel that you need, yes, maybe, okay, he can score and all of this stuff, but I don't like Russell Westbrook's temperament and decision-making. So for me, I think Kyle Lowry's the guy they should go after. So what I want to know from you guys is, whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Do you think they should go after Kyle Lowry? Whatever you guys think, let me know in the comment section below. Once again, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Once again, this is Charles here from Dreamerspro. Wishing you guys an amazing day. Catch you guys in the next episode. Peace.